These few lines in the Nelson Examiner in 1851 appear to be a standard shipping report. They note the arrival of the brig Spray, some horses, and a Mr. Redwood is among the passengers. What it really heralds is the arrival of the thoroughbred breeding industry in New Zealand, and one of the reasons why Henry Redwood would become known as the father of the New Zealand turf. Racing was mainly between military horses and settlers' hacks when the 20-year-old English immigrants settled near Nelson in 1842. Racetracks were beaches, through fern and tussock or any available land, and there was little consistency in the rules. Over the next half-century, Redwood was to play a leading role as a breeder and importer, becoming one of the biggest owners, and help introduce professionalism to thoroughbred racing in New Zealand. Redwood's family established a base at Waimea West, about 14 miles from Nelson, in a valley that still retains the family name. It was subsistence living in the early days, and with plenty of game about, Redwood became a crack shot. Within a few years, he had opened a butcher's shop, married, and built a home. Redwood had developed an interest in racing back in Staffordshire, and stables were soon added near the new house. Known as Hednesford, this is where stallions from that first shipment on the Spray started the New Zealand breeding industry. Redwood became a prolific importer of thoroughbreds. Along with his locally bred horses, they were trained on nearby Rabbit Island on what is still known as the Tick-Tock track. Redwood is credited with doubling the number of thoroughbreds in New Zealand during the 1850s. The benefits of Redwood's far-sighted racing program became obvious as his colours of red and black featured prominently at tracks around the country. The extent of his operations also spread internationally, following the first New Zealand or reverse raid on Australian tracks in 1858. Redwood, by then known as a renowned racing patron, progressive farmer and regional politician, moved his base to Spring Creek in Marlborough in 1863. From there, he walked his horses over rough tracks and streams to dominate the racing in Canterbury. With Christchurch rapidly growing as the stronghold for racing in New Zealand, Redwood recognised the need for a permanent base in the south. In 1868, he obtained the property that later became known as Chokebore Lodge, beside the racecourse at Riccarton. Professional trainers were part of the landscape, as Redwood had already lured Ted and George Cutts from Australia to train his horses. Ted took charge at Chokebore, and George was given a similar role in Auckland in the 1870s. Properly laid out racecourses and greater professionalism spread throughout New Zealand in the following decades. Thanks to the efforts of Redwood and his fellow enthusiasts, meetings were better organised and a national set of rules were being refined. Redwood-bred horses were in high demand from local and Australian buyers. By 1875, he found himself in partnership with several other 19th century racing patrons. One of them was another Racing Hall of Fame inductee, George Gatenby Stead, who bought half the Redwood racing stud. Redwood was regarded as a man of great integrity, and all of his horses ran to win. Over the decades, they earned an impressive collection of trophies. Lady Bird won the first Inter-Dominion Championship in Dunedin in 1863, defeating Mormon, which ran second to Archer in the first Melbourne Cup. Henry wasn't the only Redwood to rise to prominence in their adopted land. Younger brother Francis became an archbishop and was called upon to perform the services for his brother when he died in 1907, aged 85. By that stage, racing in New Zealand had grown from an ad hoc arrangement into a professional industry with a national governing body and a set of rules. And much of that is thanks to the efforts of the man who will forever be acknowledged as the father of the New Zealand turf.